Carolyn, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
My pleasure. So, for those who haven't encountered your work yet, perhaps you could share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yes, so I am a mental health advocate, speaker, and a author. I published my first book in 2021, which it's called Unbreakable, but it's really about the struggles that I went through with my mental health struggles. I struggled a lot with depression, anxiety, and even self-harm, and I really struggled for so many years to talk about it, and I really kept it to myself. I got horribly bullied when I was in school, so that definitely didn't help my self-esteem. And then I was a sophomore in high school when I found out I had a learning disability, which is called nonverbal. So basically, you're highly verbal, but you struggle with conceptual skills, you struggle with spatial awareness, you struggle with internalization. So it kind of just amplified the anxiety and depression, made it worse. And it wasn't until a life threatening car accident back in 2020 when I decided it was time to use my voice. And that is when I started my book, Unbreakable.
Amazing, amazing. So, there was a car accident, and that was really a turning point for you to decide, okay, I'm going to take things into my own hands and make some changes.
Absolutely. Because I think the thing was, is I was shy for so many years and I was afraid to use my voice. And after that car accident, since I was lucky to be alive, I kind of grabbed my seatbelt seconds before the crash. And if I wouldn't have grabbed my seatbelt, I probably would have gone flying through the windshield. I was in the back seat middle. So, I'm tiny, so I would have probably flown through. And so it was like a second chance at life for me. And I wasn't going to take that lightly, considering I struggled for so many years, just silently struggling. And then to have the opportunity to not have gone through the windshield, I knew that that meant something more.
So, resilience is a topic that I know is very close to your heart. What does resilience mean for you, and how have you built it after adversity?
I think resilience isn't just about getting back up when you get knocked down. I think resilience is about understanding that that is a part of your story and using it to motivate yourself to be better. Because, resilience is when those challenges happen. And, it's what do you do after those challenges happen? Are you going to get back up? Are you going to keep your story moving? Or are you going to stay in the victim mindset? Which I think I did for so many years. And, all that did was hurt myself. And so I think resilience really is just about building upon your life for the future and taking what you have had, your experiences and what has happened to you, and turning it into something positive and turning it into something that can really, benefit for someone else's life, maybe seeing your story, or really just to benefit you and be like, I made it through this, I can keep going.
It's really important, I think, that shift from seeing yourself as a victim in the world. I was in that position for some time, and in fact, that limits you incredibly. You don't actually see opportunities because you just assume that everything is against you. Any thoughts for someone for shifting from that victim to the, as Joe Dispenza calls it, the mode of being a creator, actually playing the game rather than just being a victim of it?
I think the main thing is it starts with mindset.
Mm,
And, for me, mindset was something I had to shift throughout therapy and throughout going to therapy. But it was also kind of the fact of owning it and saying, I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to feel better. I want to not be feeling, depressed all the time. What can I do to like better my life? And really kind of buying into it, because the key is buying into it and saying, it's time to shift my mindset. It's time to shift,
mm.
whatever I'm going through. And this is how I'm going to turn it around. And for me, that really included taking therapy seriously.
Okay, so therapy, anything else? Do you think that lifestyle, well-being, all of these factors play a part?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think also too, lifestyle. I think for me, working out has always been a huge thing that means a
Mm.
lot to me and is something that helps me clear my head. But also, it's just a good thing to stay in the habit of.
Hello, it's Brad Hook here, and I'm delighted to share my new book, Start with Values. It is a guide to help you discover what matters most and then bring those core values to life through tools such as micro habits. It helps you make clearer decisions through the decision making guide. It helps you to activate your values in conversations, particularly those courageous conversations where you need to assert yourself. And it helps you explore some potential shared values, such as nature stewardship, to help us all look after this planet that we call home. Inside, you'll find thought experiments, you'll find worksheets, you'll find action plans, and lots more. If you are interested in reducing your stress and building a life that's meaningful and purposeful, get your copy now. They're available on Amazon, both as a paperback book, such as this, and in Kindle format. So if you have some feedback, please log it in the reviews. I'd love to hear your experience of bringing your values to life. This approach has helped hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and it's now ready for you. Get your copy.
And, building that, that adrenaline, that those endorphins, from working out are like, anyone who works out knows, you might not want to work out, but then after you work out, you feel 10 times better. And, that is something that I definitely relied on a lot in my healing journey, because it really kind of it forced me to kind of get out of my comfort zone for a minute. And it kind of forced me to just, keep going, keep moving, and, push myself. And also understand that, I could make it through, hard times. I can also make it through harder exercises that maybe I thought I couldn't make it through before. So I would say mindset for sure. I think exercise, I think, just being able to, even if you don't work out, just going outside and simply taking a walk, like the worst thing you can do with depression, and something that I did for so many years, was I would just coop myself up and I would just lay on the couch depressed and sad. And that was like the worst thing I possibly could have done, because I was really just not taking care of myself. And I think that it all kind of comes back to making sure you're taking care of yourself, even simple things like drinking water, making sure that you're putting yourself first and understanding that your life matters, you matter, you need to take care of yourself.
We sometimes forget that our mind or brain is completely connected and integrated with the rest of the body. And the body actually quite likes some stress, some pressure. So putting it under strain, it's a bit uncomfortable in the beginning, but eventually you get to a point where you miss it. And I think that is the magic place. Like if I don't do my daily exercise, I feel way worse than the resistance you feel before you go and do that exercise. So just getting to that point and starting really small can help.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even simple things like gratitude and stuff, I've learned, throughout the years, it makes a huge difference. I also will say mindfulness, has been a huge difference in my life. And I really do think that, at first people might be a little like skeptical of it, because at first I was like, what is this? And like, why would I even like pay attention to like the birds or like, the flowers and stuff? But it really kind of forces you to get like this new appreciation and this new, fulfillment of like gratitude for something even small. I think that's like the key in living the happiest life, is living through gratitude. And I've learned that, being grateful for what you have, and also understanding that.
Hey, Brad here. Would you believe that around 70% of the people who watch this podcast have not yet subscribed? It would mean the world to us if you click that subscribe button on whichever platform you use, so that we can stay connected with you and you'll receive notifications when we add new episodes. We really appreciate you coming and connecting with us and being part of our community. So all the best.
You have so much to be grateful for, and comparing yourself though is not the way that gratitude works either. And I think social media sometimes makes us think that we got to compare our lives, and we got to, oh, they're grateful because they have this car or whatever. But it's like, the end of the day, it's like there's so much for each of us to be grateful for, as long as we have our health. And that's something I've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's physical, emotional, and mental health. And it's a journey, right? I don't think you ever get to a point where you can proclaim, I am 100% mentally healthy or mentally fit. That's another way of putting it. But recognizing that, you're going to get to a place where you've generally, most days, wake up and you feel quite good. And But there's still going to be days when you dip back down and you're like, oh, I'm back at this place again, but not to be discouraged. It's just a signal. Oh, things are not how they could be. Now put in place some practices to get back there, and at least knowing that you can.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a good point, saying that, it is true. Not every day, even when you are mentally in a good place, like I'm in the best place I've ever been in my life. But I will say, there's days you have where you feel a little bit down, a little discouraged, days where you're a little sad. But I think the difference now is that I talk about it and I don't just keep those things to myself. I really focus on my support system and, making sure that I'm, practicing what I learned in therapy, and making sure that I'm doing, there's something I learned in therapy called the deep three. And, basically it's like whenever you're about to like panic or have a manic episode or whatever, you really just stop and you take 3 deep breaths. And it sounds really simple, but the more that I implemented it in my life, the more I realized how our breathing is so important with our mental health. Because if we can learn how to calm our breathing down a little bit and not, stress out, it helps you mentally. It helps you kind of just, take a step back. And I think that that is something that is really useful that I learned.
It really is. And for anyone who's skeptical about the power of breathing, breathe, we all do it. In my resilience workshops, we attach someone to a heart rate monitor in real time, put their heart up on the big screen, and then get the rest of their team to stress them. And you see the change in heart rate variability. There's a jagged line. They're stressed. They're in fight, flight, freeze mode. With about 2 minutes of calm breathing, they're into this beautiful mode of what they call coherence, calm, focused, connected. It's just transformative, but people forget that something as simple as
Yeah.
calm breathing slows your heart rate, and you come to this place of presence again. And then suddenly you can make better choices, because what's the alternative? You end up on a roller coaster and you're no longer really in control.
Yeah, you're not in control of your emotions. And I think that's a good point too. By learning that breathing, you learn how to be in control of your emotions. And I think that that was something that I wasn't doing for so many years, is I wasn't really in control of my emotions because I was so emotional and so like I didn't have my healthy coping skills. And once I learned breathing, I realized that that is a huge healthy coping skill that I didn't know before. And that's something that I always try to say is like one of the biggest things that works for me. And, I hope other people try it and it works for them too.
Talk to me about breaking down the stigma of mental health.
I think a lot of people are just afraid of being vulnerable. I think we live in a time in a society where everything needs to be picture perfect. Everything needs to be 100%, no, like can't show the real, like what's going on behind the scenes. Like people live in this mindset of like, oh, I have to have this perfect mindset and I have to be happy all the time. But truthfully, I think that by opening up the vulnerability and by having these conversations, even if it's just one conversation at a time, we're going to end up breaking that stigma more because people are going to be more comfortable talking about it. There's a whole other story with, men and mental health and the stigma around that, and really just how kids are with the stigmas in school. And I really do think that it starts with, normalizing these conversations so that kids can, instead of, people being like, oh, how are you? Instead of being that, be like, how are you feeling? Because everything goes back to how you're feeling. And if you're not feeling good, you're not going to obviously progress in a positive way. And I think that, even just, having these conversations here and there, I think will help with what really is the bigger issue of this. And that is the fact that everyone is afraid of judgment and afraid of what people are going to think. And I think that that's where it comes down to, maybe it's with age. I mean, I'm 27 now. And when I was like 16, I was so concerned about what people thought, what people were saying, whatever. But I think it maybe comes with age that you just like don't care anymore. And, at least for me, I just want to help people, and I just want to help people feel less alone than I did, because I know how isolating it can really feel.
I mean, it's fantastic that you've reached this point at the age of 27. I remember being 27 and feeling pretty lost. I was trying to find happiness, but the version of happiness was a temporary relief from suffering. And so it was these short, acute moments of kind of joy manufactured through going to clubs and substances and whatever that kind of gave you a bit of relief, and then that became the only good thing in life. And what does that do? That sends you even further down, because there's no authentic happiness or joy in your life. So it's really amazing that you got to this point by 27. It took me a lot longer. But not only have you reached this point yourself, you've written a book about it. So tell us a little bit about your book, Unbreakable.
So Unbreakable really came to be in the pandemic. I really wanted to use my voice in a way of showing things that I've gone through, but also showing how common things are. So there's a lot of statistics there of saying, of how many people are going through depression in like high school and college and all that sort of stuff. And really like the trials and tribulations you go through in life. And really it's kind of supposed to be a message of, number one, accepting yourself for who you are, but two, not being ashamed of who you are, and understanding that we all go through things in life and there is good and bad in everyone's life. It's just about being able to overcome that and to be able to say, okay, well, yeah, I was in a car accident in 2020 and I could have died. But because I wasn't, I was like, well, wait a second. I've been struggling silently for years. And now all of a sudden, I have this whole new appreciation for life. I have this whole new mindset. And that's when I was like, that's when I realized I wanted to use my voice, because I silently did not use my voice for so many years. And so really it's about using your voice. And I hope that it can help someone who isn't ready to speak up, and someone who is going through something like that. But really more than anything, it was just to help one person. And I ultimately think it healed me the most. I really kind of became so at peace with everything. And there's something about writing and becoming so at peace with things. It's just like a healing thing that I never knew was actually like my biggest passion.
Had you imagined writing books before this?
No. It's funny, when I was a kid, I would go into Barnes and Noble and my mom would always be like, okay, like go pick out a book or whatever. And I'd be like, "Ugh, I don't want to be in here. Like even like third grade. And then now it's like, I love Barnes and Noble. I could spend hours in there. Like it's just
Mhm.
amazing. So it is kind of funny how that really changed because of one event in my life.
What are some of the key principles or chapters or topics in the book that people can look forward to?
I think one of the biggest things and one of the hardest chapters to write was about my almost attempt. But I think that by writing that and by going back to that place, I realized that's a place I never want to be again. And
Mm.
so the reason that I was so vulnerable and sharing everything that happened, especially and that's chapter 5, which is Life is a Blur, and it's 4 or 5. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the chapter is called Life is a Blur. And it's really just about how I got to college. I thought that it was going to be the best 4 years of my life. It was not. I really struggled making friends. I struggled fitting in. And I was like, okay, here we go again. Here's the same old thing. Because I always
Mhm.
felt like I never did really fit in fully. And, as hard as that chapter was to write, looking back, I like realized, this is a really hard chapter to write, but this also could give someone who is very much struggling and feeling like they're on the edge to see why they shouldn't give up. And
Yeah.
that to me is my biggest thing is, it's the pivoting. It's the saying, you know what? I've been through all this stuff. People have been mean to me. People have said horrible things to me. I've been bullied, whatever. But it's like I've made it through. And it's about pivoting from that point and being like, how can I better my life moving forward? And that is something I think anyone could take away and, apply it to their own life.
Mm. How has the reception been? Have you had some positive feedback stories so far?
Yeah, yeah. I saw this one, and yes, you're not really supposed to check your reviews, But I saw this one, and it started off by saying, I read this book and it did nothing for me. And then she said, but then I went through something traumatic and I went back
Mm,
to this book and it helped me so much. And that to me just meant so much, because I was like, that was like the point, if you're going through something tragic, let it be like your blanket, let it be that security for you. Because I had my best friend in the entire world save me from making the biggest mistake of my life. But I'm like hoping that the book can be an angel for someone else who maybe doesn't have that, because
mm.
unfortunately, not everyone does have someone to stop them.
Yeah. That's so true. And I think that's what many people who have endured adversity, that's what they're trying to do, is just leave those breadcrumbs out there in the world so that people can find it, hopefully at the time that they need it. And we need as many voices as possible, because what my story, which I detail in the start of my new book, is different, but it might resonate with someone who's at that phase of their life, whereas your story is more relevant to someone else. So we need these stories so that people
Yes.
don't feel alone at those really important moments.
Yeah, because everyone has a story and everyone's story is important. Everyone deserves to use their voice, and I think we need to normalize our stories, because our stories are what make us us. You shouldn't be ashamed of your story. I think for so many years I was ashamed of my story, and just the fact that like I was going through all these really hard times, and it like wasn't making sense to me. Because the other thing, on the flip side, I have the most incredible supportive family. My sister Jordan is my best friend, and I'm so lucky for that. But even having all that love and support at home, it was like I still felt so alone when I was in like social settings, because I just like I never felt like a fully like people would understand me. And then when I found out I had my learning disability, I was really scared that people were going to look at me differently. But now, fast forward 10 years later, and now I'm a huge advocate for it. And I like to talk about it so that it can help someone else who's feeling, alone. Because, with having a learning disability, there are times you get frustrated, like parallel parking is not my strength. And, parking and spatial awareness and packing, like those are all things that I struggle with. But I don't let that get me down anymore. And I don't let that get me depressed anymore. I say, you know what? It's part of me. It's okay. My best friends, they understand how I am. And if I'm having a day, they'll be like, "Did you just want me to do it?" I'll be like, "Yes." And I won't even no one will think twice about it. And it's just to now have that support, and to now have that support system to not go down that rabbit hole, is the biggest blessing I could have asked for. Because I truly think that everyone deserves to have a support system, and at least have one person who really, really, really values and cares about them and wants the best for them.
And a lot of people might forget that there are actually people there who do care, because
Yes.
it feels normal, or it feels like, I don't know, it requires time and investment to nurture those relationships. But having those people that you can turn to is critical. How would you recommend people reconnect with their support network? Is it just a case of reaching out, or if someone feels really alone, any thoughts?
So, the biggest thing that I always say is, first of all, like understand that the feeling that you're feeling, you might feel alone, but you're not alone. And whether that is going into intensive outpatient therapy, which I did, or going inpatient, doing whatever it is so that you can keep yourself safe, I think that is a great thing to do if you really, really, really are at a low. But I think, with family and stuff like that, I understand not everyone has the relationships that I do with my family. But I think that it really just starts with the vulnerability, whether that's,
Mm,
family or friends who are like family, and just be honest about what's going on. And the people that really care about you and love you are going to be there for you, regardless
mm,
of, how much you're struggling, because they'll care for you. And it's not like a friendship where it's like, oh, this is too much. It's like a friendship of like, hey, you know what can we do to, help you feel less alone? What can we do to, help you moving forward? Should we consider you talking about therapy or like whatever? But I think it's, finding that even a therapist, whatever it is, a religious affiliation, I would say a church or, a synagogue, like go into that. Those are very, very welcoming spaces. And so I feel like that's another way you could like meet people to really help you through hard times. But yeah, get creative and, r- really just don't don't give up on the fact of feeling like you don't have anyone, because
Mm.
unfortunately that's how I felt, and I actually had my family and like my few best friends at the time. So make sure that you're not looking past the people that you do have, because everyone says that, but really if you think about it, there has to be at least one person, even if it's a therapist, even if it's, school counselor, if you're in school, like whatever it is, just to talk, because holding things in is the worst thing you could do. And I know that because I did that for 22 years.
Absolutely. Have you heard about the rat park experiment?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so they put a rat in a cage and they had a little uh, distributor a little feeder that distributed water and another one that had heroin in it. And the rat experimented with both. It discovered the heroin and it would just start becoming addicted. It would just tap it and basically just get high and became addicted. Then they replicated the experiment, except they created this kind of rat park, which was full of toys and wheels and other rats to socialize with. And they put the two feeders, one with water, one with heroin. And they would try both, and then they would just revert to water because they had all of the connection and stimulation that they needed from the other rats. And they hypothesized that it's the same with humans. When we feel really alone, um, we probably just do whatever we can to relieve that suffering. And that's where mental illness comes from. Whereas the key is connections. And that actually was talked about in this book called Lost Connections by Johan Hari. And he says, what we actually need is just social connections and nurturing them and being there. And I think that brings me to another point, which is if you're doing well, maybe it's time to look out there and see how you can support others.
Absolutely. I mean, I think
Mm.
that's a really important point too. And that's kind of why I did what I did though, because I realized I was doing so well. And there were so many people, especially during the pandemic, who weren't doing well. And I kind of almost like wanted to like pay it forward. Like I was in those shoes before, but I'm lucky to not be there anymore. So I want to help you hopefully see that you won't be at that point forever, and that
Mm.
there is so much ahead for you, and that there always is a light a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just sometimes about seeing it yourself.
Right.
And, I think that's the biggest thing too. And that's my biggest passion of life, is really helping people, because, I know what it feels like to feel alone. I know what it feels like to be bullied. I know what it feels like to feel like, life isn't worth living. But I also know what it's like to have accomplished getting a book or writing a book, and to have, your friends and family support you and,
Yeah.
be there for you. So, there's so many flip sides to it that you have to kind of look past those hard times to be like, I will get to that point. It just might not be right now. But what I can do right now is I can focus on healthy coping. And I think that that's a big thing that a lot of people aren't even taught. Like, it literally took me getting to rock bottom to know about the deep three, which is what my therapist calls it. And that's something that people should have the tools to know beforehand. So that's kind of how I see that one a little bit, because I'm like, everyone should have the tools to be able to move forward positively in their life and not have situations pull them back or make them feel worse or less than, because no person or no thing is ever worth giving up because of like that person or because of that thing. Like there's no
Mm.
reason that you should ever end on your account.
So, what are the deep three?
So the deep three is really just the deep three, like breathing.
Okay,
And so the
got it.
first one is to kind of keep you grounded.
Hmm.
The second one is to kind of just just channel yourself, like lower your breathing. And the last one, I forget exactly what she said. I need to remember this because she said this so many times, but basically it just helps you get peace of mind, and it
Yeah.
helps you kind of regulate your breathing and helps you slow down your breathing. And the more that you do it, I mean, I've gotten like some of my best friends and family onto it, been like, if they're like anxious or something, I'm like, try this because I've been
Yeah.
doing this and it helps. And people have said that it's helped them, and it's worked for them. So I just, hope that it can help as many people as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. 3 breaths can make all the difference in the midst of a
Mhm.
busy, busy day.
Absolutely.
How important is a sense of purpose?
I think everyone has purpose. I think that if you're breathing, if you're living and you're here, you have a purpose. I think a lot of people sometimes get lost in the sight of, oh, I don't know what my purpose is. And for me, I always knew that I felt different and that I felt like one day maybe I could use my voice, but I never realized that my purpose in life was to use my voice. And I think that the biggest thing is, if you're struggling to find out your purpose, it kind of all starts with like what gives you joy. For me, what gives me joy is for someone coming up after a speaking engagement and being like, thank you. Like that really, really helped me. I feel so seen. I feel so understood. Like, thank you for doing what you're doing. And that one comment just makes it all the worth it. And that gives me purpose. But it's like, what is it for you? And so is it helping people? Is it, you know, I mean, really, what is it? It could be anything. And so I
Mhm.
think that it's just about giving yourself time to find what does give you joy. And obviously, when I was depressed, I said nothing. But truthfully, music has always fueled me. I love music. I love writing music. I have been, I sang in college. It was something that I always did for me. And it was something that gave me joy. Even when I didn't realize it back then, I know that it
Mm.
did. And so, if it is music, try music, it could really be whatever it is that fuels you. And that's a question you have to ask yourself, like what fuels you? And I didn't know that answer for a long time, but now I do, and I feel very grateful that I know that answer. But it also didn't, like, I mean, it took like 20, 25 years to really kind of figure out that answer. So don't be discouraged if you can't figure out your purpose right away, because your purpose will reveal itself to you. I mean, I never realized that writing was my purpose, or, just speaking out and everything, but here we are. So you might pleasantly be surprised too.
It sounds like creativity is one of your core values. And when you connect
Mhm.
with that, you really do find that joy and that sense of purpose.
Yeah. Like I have that piano back there. Have I
Yeah.
learned it yet? No, but that's a goal for 2025.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I got one for my daughter who's 10, and we couldn't find a music teacher in the area where we live. It's a small town. Well, the teachers were all fully booked. New Zealand is there's less people than in other places. So we downloaded an app called Simply Piano, and she has taught herself to play a wide range of songs in 2 months.
I might have to try this now. You said Simply Piano?
Simply Piano, and I'm no affiliate. This is not like
Yeah,
use
yeah, yeah.
promo code Brad. it's it is fantastic, and it's so visual. And the most amazing thing is that the app listens through the microphone to you playing and gives you feedback. So
Oh, wow.
it
Okay.
fast tracks that progress by giving you real time feedback and showing you when you hit the notes right and when you don't, and you can slow the music down. And oh my goodness,
Oh,
I couldn't believe it. I
cool.
mean, to have the fresh brain of a 10-year-old as well, it's pretty impressive.
That's
But
very impressive. I mean, I know my sister taught herself to play the guitar, so I think that's impressive too. But,
yeah,
that might be something I have to learn, maybe get a teacher or something. But, for me, like, music, voice, all this stuff, it was so funny. I was looking through my old computer. This was like a year ago. And I found all these videos of me like doing karaoke, singing in my dorm room, depressed, and I realized, I was like, holy crap, music was a huge part of what saved me. Because I was
mhm,
like, this was me depressed in bed, like literally just wanting to, like, not knowing where life was going. I just like this is my first semester freshman year. I thought it was gonna be so much more different than it was. And, just to have those videos now, it's kind of crazy because I'm like, that was it. That, I mean, besides my, friends and family, that saved me. So that was it for me.
Yeah, finding those things that give you a little bit of joy each day. And what you find with all of these practices, for me, it has always been surfing. And going surfing takes your mind out of the future and the past and just brings you back to the present, which is mindfulness. You're aware of the present
Mhm.
moment, even if it's just for a short time. That's going to be fantastic for your mental health.
Yes, it really is. I
Mm.
mean, we don't have surfing here. We don't have an ocean, unfortunately, but I can imagine that that's definitely a good outlet for sure.
So what's next for you? Another book?
We'll see. I'm still doing speaking engagements and, doing podcasts and stuff like that. So, we'll see what's to come. I definitely want to speak as much as I can. I love it. It fuels me more than anything. And if you are wondering what the speech is about, it's about resilience, adaptability, and positivity. And it's a really great speech, I think. So if you need a speaker, please go to my website, carolynsophia.com, because I love doing it and I will go anywhere in the world. So just tell me where to go. But I love doing it. So I just want to continue speaking and, continuing to make a difference and, maybe focusing more on my own podcast. But to be honest, I'm not very technology savvy. So it's been a challenge for me, but we'll see what happens. We'll see where life takes me.
And you have a particular focus on young people?
Yeah, I think I really found that they respond really well, especially like high school and college age, that age especially. I mean, even middle
Mm.
school, but high school especially because they are not that far removed from where I am. I mean, I'm definitely a lot older, but at the same time, it's like not too long ago was I in high school.
Mm,
So it's
yeah,
like they do kind of relate to some degree because they're like, oh, wait, like she might have graduated 10 years ago. Oh my gosh, 10 years. But, it's also that fact that, they're like, oh, okay, well, like this isn't that far off. So she might know what she's,
yeah,
been through.
exactly, exactly. Well, that's fantastic. Anywhere else you would like people to go if they want to follow your work? They'll find your website link in the show notes. What about your book? Where can they find it?
Yes, my book. You can find it on Amazon and you can also find it on Barnes and Noble. However, most people have been getting it off of Amazon. Still trying to get it in Barnes and Noble stores. Fingers crossed that can happen. But it's on those two websites. And then if you type in Unbreakable on Amazon, type in Carolyn Sophia, Sophia, because sometimes people said when they typed in Unbreakable, they would get like glasses or like weird things. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
well, that's not it. So, but if you type in that, you'll definitely get the book.
I found when people type my name in Bradley Hook, there's an actual kind of hook called a Bradley hook. I was like, oh dear, why did my parents choose that? So I used Brad Hook, and that seems to work.
I love
Oh, there's a cattle farmer in Texas called Brad Hook, but I think I rank a little bit higher than him. Fantastic, Carolyn. That's amazing. Any final thoughts for those who stuck with us all the way to the end?
I mean, I really think the biggest thing is go after what you're passionate in life. I think that, the most important thing is we need more love and kindness in this world. So always be kind. My parents told me as a kid, treat others as you'd want to be treated. And that never went away.
Mm,
So, treating people with kindness, treating everyone with respect, regardless of what, how people treat you is really the key to life because, you know, by doing social media to begin with, you do have some people who aren't always positive, but you kind of just have to ignore that and you kind of just have to keep going and not let anyone stand in your way. So I would say that. I would also say, if you need help, if you are listening to this and you're like, wow, like I really do relate to this, don't be afraid after this podcast to literally pick up the phone and either, I don't know how it is for you. In the States, it's 988, but it's a number that you can call. It's the suicide hotline. But also, figure out, if you're at a school, whether it's a university or a high school, there should be resources for you too. So figure out where your resources are. I don't think they always talk about enough where people's resources are when they're younger, but they should have them at the schools and universities, especially. They definitely will. So I would say definitely make sure on that. And then also, really just be kind, be loving, be gracious, and, life will work out one way or another. So I really do believe that. And, if you need a speaker, I love doing it. So feel free to just go to my website, carolynsophia.com, which I'm sure you'll have in the show notes, the link and stuff. So I won't even bother saying it because sometimes people get it wrong anyway. I mean, I've gotten it wrong many times, so I'm not going to even try. But yeah, just keep going, keep being you, and remember, you're unbreakable.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Congratulations on the book. It's an
Thank
incredible
you.
milestone.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, if anyone would like a speaker, do check out the link in the show notes, connect with Carolyn. And yeah, thank you so much for your time today and, for sharing your remarkable journey. Really appreciate it.